It's 1855, a 16-year-old kid in Cleveland, Ohio. Not rich, not famous, not standing on a gushing oil field. He is sitting at a desk, staring at a ledger, copying numbers, and earning 50 cents a day. That is John D. Rockefeller, the world's first billionaire. But here is the thing. He did not get there by chasing the oil everyone was obsessed with. He got there by staring at those numbers long enough to see something no one else did. The machine behind the oil, the refineries, the railroads, the costs, the wasted money, the men who were slowly going broke because they could not see the system. Everyone else was digging holes in the ground, hoping to strike it rich. Rockefeller was digging through ledgers, hoping to control the thing that made the holes matter. He did not become rich because he found oil. He became rich because he understood the machine around oil. His father, Big Bill Rockefeller, was a smooth talker, a salesman who wandered the country making deals. His mother, Eliza, was strict, frugal, and deeply religious. She taught him discipline, saving every penny, and giving a portion of his earnings to charity. Those lessons stuck. While other young men were spending their money on drinks and parties, Rockefeller was saving, bookkeeping, and calculating interest. He did not see money as something to spend. He saw it as something to control. And when the oil boom hit, he did not see black gold. He saw a mess, a chaotic industry where no one was counting the costs, no one was controlling the flow, and no one was thinking about tomorrow. The question is, if it were you, would you chase the oil underground? Or study the machine that moved it, refined it, priced it, and sold it? 1859. Edwin Drake drills the first commercial oil well in Titusville, Pennsylvania. Overnight, the world goes crazy. Men flood into the oil fields, farmers, mechanics, gamblers, dreamers. They dig holes, they strike oil. They get rich, or they go bankrupt. The oil market is a roller coaster. Prices swing up and down. Wells dry up, oil spills, wasted. It is a gold rush, and gold rushes are messy. Everyone is focused on the source, the oil underground. But not Rockefeller. He is watching from Cleveland, and he is thinking drilling is a gamble. Refining is a system. Drilling depends on luck. You can dig a hole and find nothing. You can find oil and watch the price crash. You can control the ground. But refining is math. You take crude oil, you process it, you turn it into kerosene, something people actually need, something they will pay for every day. You can control the process. You can cut waste. You can calculate costs. You can make it efficient. While the oilmen are covered in dirt, yelling about their gushing wells, Rockefeller is building a refinery. Quietly, boringly, but dangerously. Because he is not just building a business, he is building a machine that will outlast every lucky strike. The loud money was in the oil field. The quiet power was in the refinery. He partners with Samuel Andrews, a man who knows how to refine oil efficiently, and later with Henry Flagler, a sharp businessman who will help him control the railroads. Together they start small, but they think big. They do not just want to refine oil. They want to refine it better, cheaper, and faster than anyone else. They want to turn waste into profit, using every drop of oil, every byproduct, so nothing goes to waste. While others are gambling on the next big well, Rockefeller is building a system that does not depend on luck. So tell me, if you were standing there in the oil boom, would you gamble for the dramatic win or build the boring machine that wins every day? 1870. Rockefeller, his brother William, Samuel Andrews, Henry Flagler, and Stephen Harkness formed the Standard Oil Company of Ohio. The name Standard is not just a brand, it is a promise of consistency, a promise of efficiency, a promise that no matter where you buy Standard Oil kerosene, it will be the same quality at the same price. But behind that promise is something far more powerful: control. Standard Oil is not just a company, it is a pressure system, one that squeezes every wasted cent out of the business and then turns that squeeze into pressure on every rival. Rockefeller is obsessed with cost control. He counts every penny. He negotiates with suppliers to get the cheapest barrels. He invents new ways to reduce waste, recycling oil, using byproducts like paraffin and lubricating oil to make extra money. He builds his own storage tanks, his own pipelines, his own shipping docks. He does not want to depend on anyone else. He wants to control every step of the process, from the crude oil to the kerosene in the customer's lamp. And every time he cuts a cost, every time he eliminates a waste, he makes it harder for his rivals to keep up. because if Standard Oil can sell kerosene for a penny less than everyone else, the others either have to match that price and lose money, or raise their price and lose customers. Every wasted cent he removed from his own business became pressure on someone else's throat. Flagler is the one who helps him leverage this efficiency into power. He negotiates with railroad companies to get better rates, using Standard Oil's massive volume as leverage. They do not just want a discount, they want control. Control over the railroads that carry their oil. Control over the rates their rivals pay. And as Standard Oil grows, its efficiency becomes a weapon. It is not just about being better. It is about being so efficient that no one else can survive. So here is the question. If you were him, would you see efficiency as discipline or as a weapon? If you were him, would you see efficiency as discipline or as a weapon? Buy them, close them, or let them bleed. 1872. Cleveland, Ohio, the oil capital of America. There are 26 refineries in the city. Rockefeller wants them all, not because he needs more refineries, because he needs less competition. This is not a price war. It is a strategic hunt, a slow, calculated suffocation. Standard Oil has the lowest costs, the best railroad rates, the most efficient refineries. The other refineries are struggling. They cannot match Standard's prices. They cannot get the same railroad discounts. They are bleeding money, and then Rockefeller sends his men to their doors. The offer is simple. Sell your refinery to Standard Oil, and we will give you a fair price. Refuse, and we will keep cutting our prices. We will keep getting better railroad rates. We will make sure you cannot make a profit. We will let you bleed until you go bankrupt. It is not a threat. It is a promise. Over the first 3 months of 1872, 22 of the 26 refineries in Cleveland are bought, closed, or driven out of business. They call it the Cleveland Massacre. But there are no guns, no violence, just balance sheets, just numbers, just men sitting in offices, staring at red ink, realizing they have no choice. No gun was fired. The weapon was the balance sheet. Critics call it unfair. They say Rockefeller is using his power to crush competition, to create a monopoly. Supporters say he is cleaning up a chaotic industry, making it more efficient, lowering prices for consumers. The truth is somewhere in between. He is efficient, he is smart, but he is also ruthless. He does not see competitors as rivals to outperform. He sees them as pieces to absorb. He sees the oil industry as a machine, and every rival is a loose part that needs to be fixed or removed. So tell me, if you were Rockefeller, would you leave your rivals alive for the sake of fairness, or absorb them before they could become dangerous? Oil is useless if you cannot move it. Crude oil from Pennsylvania has to get to refineries in Cleveland. Refined kerosene has to get to customers across America. The railroads control that movement, and control of the railroads means control of the oil industry. Rockefeller knows this better than anyone, so he uses Standard Oil's size to his advantage. He promises the railroad companies millions of gallons of oil every year, stable, consistent business they cannot afford to lose. In return, he gets secret discounts, rebates rates so low that no small refinery can match them. It is a secret agreement, a deal that no one else knows about. A small refinery owner might pay $2 per barrel to ship his oil. Standard Oil pays $1.50 or less. That difference 50 cents per barrel might not sound like much, but when you are shipping millions of barrels a year, it is the difference between profit and bankruptcy. It is the difference between staying in business and closing your doors. The Southern Improvement Company scandal exposes this secret. The public is outraged. They call it corruption. They call it unfair. But Rockefeller does not care, because he knows the truth. In business, the one who controls the transportation controls the market. Consumers saw light in the lamp. His rivals saw death in the railroad bill. Imagine you are a small refinery owner. You have a good product. You have hard-working employees. But every time you ship your oil, you pay more than Rockefeller. You cannot lower your prices because you cannot lower your costs. You watch as Standard Oil expands, as more refineries close, as the market gets smaller and smaller. You have no choice. You are trapped. Because the railroad bill is a death sentence. So here is the question. If a railroad advantage could make your company unbeatable, would you take it, even if history might one day call it unfair? 1882. Standard Oil is already the biggest oil company in America. But Rockefeller is not satisfied. He wants more, not more refineries, not more oil. He wants control, total control, over the entire oil industry. So he invents something new, the Standard Oil Trust. A trust is a legal structure that lets a group of companies be controlled by a small group of people. It is not just one company. It is a network, a web, a system where dozens of companies, refineries, pipelines, railroads, storage facilities, all act as one, all answer to Rockefeller. By the late 1880s, Standard Oil controls 90% of America's oil refining. 90%. That is not a monopoly. That is an empire. Rockefeller does not just own companies. He owns the rules. He decides the price of oil. He decides which refineries stay open. He decides which railroads get business. He decides who survives and who dies. Standard Oil is no longer a company. It is an operating system for the entire oil industry. It is an octopus with tentacles wrapped around every part of the business, from the oil well to the customer's lamp, and no one can escape. A company sells products. A system decides who gets to sell it all. The trust makes Rockefeller untouchable. Politicians cannot stop him. Competitors cannot beat him. The public is angry, but they cannot do anything, because he is not just a businessman. He is a designer. He designed a system that controls the industry, and systems are harder to beat than companies. They are harder to regulate. They are harder to understand. So here is the question. If you could design the rules of an entire industry, would you stop before the industry forgot how to live without you? 1902. A journalist named Ida Tarbell starts publishing a series of articles in McClure's magazine called The History of the Standard Oil Company. She is not just writing a story. She is conducting an investigation. She is digging into the secrets of Standard Oil, the railroad rebates, the Cleveland Massacre, the trust, the ruthless business practices. She is telling the world the truth about Rockefeller, the truth that he is not just a genius. He is a robber baron, a man who built an empire on unfairness, on greed, on crushing anyone who stood in his way. The articles are a sensation. The public is outraged. They start to see Rockefeller not as a hero, but as a villain. A man who stole wealth from the poor, who crushed small businesses, who cared only about power. But Rockefeller's response? Silence. He refuses to comment. He refuses to defend himself. He refuses to even acknowledge the articles. In business, silence is a weapon. It is a way to stay in control. But in the court of public opinion, silence is a weakness. It lets others write your story. It lets others define who you are. And Ida Tarbell is defining Rockefeller as a villain. He controlled the oil. He could not control the story. He has spent decades controlling every part of the oil industry. But he cannot control how people talk about him. He cannot control the narrative. And that narrative is destroying his reputation. The government starts to take notice. The public demands action. Antitrust laws are being written, and Standard Oil is the target. Rockefeller's silence has backfired. He thought he could outweigh the controversy, but he was wrong. So tell me, if the world began calling you a villain, would you defend yourself, confess, rebrand, or stay silent? If the world began calling you a villain, would you defend yourself, confess, rebrand, or stay silent? 1911 and the strange victory hidden inside defeat 1890. The Sherman Antitrust Act is passed. It is a law designed to break up monopolies, to protect competition, to stop companies like Standard Oil from becoming too powerful. For years, the government has been investigating Standard Oil. For years, Rockefeller has fought back. But in 1911, the Supreme Court of the United States rules Standard Oil is a monopoly. It violates the Sherman Antitrust Act. It must be broken up into 34 separate companies. The world thinks it is the end of Rockefeller's empire. The headlines scream, Standard Oil broken up, Rockefeller defeated. But here is the secret. Rockefeller is not defeated. He is still rich. In fact, he is about to get richer because he does not own Standard Oil, the company. He owns the stock. The 34 separate companies are all still in the oil business. They are still profitable. And as the oil industry grows, as demand for oil increases, the value of those stocks grows too. The government broke the company into pieces. But Rockefeller still owned the pieces. The government broke his company into pieces, but he still owned the pieces. In 1916, newspapers report that John D. Rockefeller is the world's first confirmed billionaire. $1 billion, a number no one had ever seen before. A breakup did not destroy him. It freed him. He no longer had to run the company. He no longer had to fight the government. He just had to sit back and watch his wealth grow. He had become something more powerful than a businessman. He had become a capital holder, someone who owned the assets, not the operations. And that is the most dangerous position of all. So here is the question. If your empire were broken into 34 pieces, would you see the end? Or would you quietly count how many pieces still belong to you? By the early 1900s, Rockefeller is one of the richest men in history, but he is also one of the most hated. The robber baron label follows him everywhere. He knows his reputation is damaged. He knows he needs to change the story, so he turns to philanthropy, not just giving money away, building a legacy. In 1901, he founded the Rockefeller Institute for Medical Research, now Rockefeller University, a place dedicated to finding cures for diseases. He gives millions to education, funding the University of Chicago and hundreds of other schools. In 1913, he founded the Rockefeller Foundation, one of the largest charitable foundations in the world, dedicated to improving health and education around the globe. His philanthropy is massive. He gives away over $500 million in his lifetime. That is billions in today's money. He helps eradicate hookworm. He funds medical research that saves millions of lives. He builds schools that educate generations. But the question remains, why? Is it redemption? Is he trying to make up for the ruthless business practices of his past? Is it reputation repair? Is he trying to erase the robber baron label and be remembered as a philanthropist? Or is it power in another form? Because philanthropy gives him influence over education, over medicine, over society, influence that no company could ever give him. John D. Rockefeller's life is a study in contradictions. A poor clerk who built an empire, a man who preached frugality but amassed more wealth than anyone in history, a businessman who was ruthless enough to crush rivals, yet generous enough to give away billions. He built a system that changed the world, for better and for worse. He brought efficiency to a chaotic industry, lowered prices for millions of consumers, and built institutions that still save lives today. But he did it by crushing competition, bending the rules, and leaving a trail of broken businesses and angry rivals. He did not just build a fortune. He built a question that still matters today. What are you willing to do to win? And when do you stop? Today, his legacy lives on. In the oil companies that grew from the pieces of Standard Oil, in the medical research that cures diseases, in the schools that educate millions. But so does the debate. Is he a hero or a villain? A genius or a tyrant? A philanthropist or a power-hungry mogul? The answer depends on who you ask. But the real question is not about him. It is about you. Because every day we face small versions of his choices. Do we cut corners to get ahead? Do we put our goals above others? Do we chase power, or do we chase purpose? Rockefeller's life was not just a story of wealth. It was a story of choice. Every decision he made, to refine instead of drill, to absorb rivals instead of compete, to take the railroad advantage, to stay silent, to give away his fortune, shaped his legacy. And every choice you make shapes yours. So let us end with the question that has been with us since the beginning. If you were John D. Rockefeller, if you had the chance to build an empire, to control an industry, to amass unimaginable wealth, would you do it? And if you did, would you know when to stop? If you were John D. Rockefeller, would you build an empire or stop yourself? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you want to dive deeper into the stories of the world's most ruthless and brilliant businessmen, subscribe to Savage Money Ranks.